When people think of the world's richest men, names like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, or Warren Buffett usually come to mind. But for years, another name quietly sat at the very top: Carlos Slim. At one point, he wasn't just the richest man in Latin America. He was the richest man alive. This is the story of Carlos Slim, how he built his empire, the strategies behind his wealth, and why he became known as the man who could quietly buy entire industries. Carlos Slim Helú was born on January 28, 1940, in Mexico City. His father, Julian Slim Haddad, was a Lebanese immigrant who came to Mexico at just 14 years old, escaping conflict in the Middle East. Carlos grew up watching his father meticulously track every peso. By the age of 12, Slim was already investing in government bonds and learning about compound interest. By the time he was a teenager, Carlos was buying shares in Mexican banks, recording every detail in his notebooks he kept for decades. The seeds of a billionaire mindset were already planted. Carlos studied engineering at the National Autonomous University of Mexico, excelling in math and economics. But more importantly, he sharpened his ability to analyze numbers and see patterns others missed. In the 1960s, Slim founded his first investment company, Inversora Bursátil. His strategy was clear: buy undervalued companies, streamline operations, and hold long-term. By his 25th birthday, Slim had built a fortune of over $400,000, millions in today's money. He began acquiring small businesses, from construction firms to mining interests. Every move was calculated, every acquisition a piece of a larger puzzle. The turning point came in the 1980s. Mexico was hit with a massive debt crisis. Inflation soared, companies collapsed, and foreign investors fled. Where most saw disaster, Carlos Slim saw opportunity. He believed that even in a collapsing economy, essential businesses, like food, industry, and communications, would survive and eventually thrive again. Slim began buying companies at fire sale prices: cigarette makers, tire factories, bottling companies, and insurance firms. He scooped them up while others panicked. The strategy worked. As Mexico's economy recovered, Slim's empire ballooned, but his biggest move was still ahead. In 1990, Slim made the deal that would define his career. The Mexican government was privatizing its state-owned phone company, Telmex. Most investors weren't interested. The infrastructure was outdated, the service unreliable, and few Mexicans even had telephones. But Slim understood something crucial. Communication is the backbone of modern economies. With a group of partners, he bought Telmex for $1.7 billion. Over the next decade, Slim turned Telmex into a powerhouse, modernizing infrastructure, expanding access, and dominating Mexico's telecom market. Later, he spun off América Móvil, which would grow into one of the largest mobile telecom companies in the world, serving hundreds of millions of customers across Latin America. This was the move that catapulted him into the ranks of the richest men alive. By 2007, Carlos Slim's net worth had skyrocketed past $50 billion. For several years, he even surpassed Bill Gates to become the world's richest person. But Slim's empire wasn't just telecom. Through his conglomerate Grupo Carso, he had holdings in construction, retail, real estate, mining, and even restaurants. At one point, his companies accounted for more than 40% of the listings on the Mexican stock exchange. He also made high-profile international plays. Slim invested billions into the New York Times Company, becoming its largest single shareholder. He partnered with technology firms, retail giants, and infrastructure projects. Slim wasn't just Mexico's richest man. He was a global force. Unlike many billionaires, Carlos Slim was known for his low-profile lifestyle. He drove himself to work in a simple car, lived in the same house for decades, and avoided the jet-set playboy image. His philosophy was simple: invest in things people will always need: communication, infrastructure, and basic services. He often said, "When there is a crisis, that's when you invest." His discipline and patience were legendary. He rarely sold companies, preferring to hold and expand. To him, wealth wasn't about consumption. It was about building systems that last. But Slim's empire has not been without criticism. Some argue his dominance over Mexico's telecom industry stifled competition and kept prices high. In fact, At one point, it was estimated that inefficiencies in Mexico's telecom market cost the economy billions annually. The Mexican government eventually introduced reforms to break up monopolistic practices and encourage competition. Slim, however, adapted and continued to thrive. Critics also point out that while Slim's fortune grew to astronomical levels, Mexico still struggled with poverty and inequality. To many, Slim became a symbol of both the possibilities and the flaws of capitalism in Latin America. Despite controversy, Carlos Slim's influence on Mexico and global business is undeniable. His investments modernized infrastructure, expanded mobile access across Latin America, and helped shape industries. He has also been a major philanthropist. Through the Carlos Slim Foundation, he has donated billions to healthcare, education, and research. The foundation supports medical programs, scholarships, and digital education initiatives across Mexico and beyond. Slim's legacy is complicated. Part visionary investor, part controversial monopolist. But his rise from the child of immigrants to the world's richest man is one of the most remarkable stories in business history. Carlos Slim may not have the global spotlight of an Elon Musk or a Jeff Bezos, but for decades, he quietly shaped industries, amassed a fortune, and proved that the smartest moves often happen when others are afraid to act. This has been the billionaire biography of Carlos Slim. Which billionaire do you want to see us cover next? Drop your suggestions in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more deep dives into the lives of the world's wealthiest.